Hello, I'm Phil Lenahan for The Better Part. Today's program is on senior housing. Sooner or later, you will be faced with choices as you age as to where you will live in the future. It's called senior housing. You'll be worrying about it for yourself and for maybe your parents. Our guest today provides a service which helps you find the resources and the choices which you will have to make. But most of all, plan, plan, plan. Please stay tuned.
Welcome to The Better Part, a program that encompasses a diverse spectrum of topics important to our community, which we hope will both inform and entertain you. We invite you to sit back and enjoy the program.
Our guest today is Kaye Sharbrough. She is president and founder of Senior Seasons, which is a resource which you can use in finding senior housing. Welcome, Kaye.
Thank you very much, Phil, for having me. I love having every opportunity, especially one like this, to talk about what I'm passionate about, which is helping seniors and their families find senior housing. So I love speaking about it. Thanks.
Exactly. What is senior housing?
Well, senior housing is age-specific. It can be 55 and older, or it can be more frequently 60 to 62 and older, where people live together and where you're not alone, where you live with other people who have as much time and opportunity to enjoy life as you do, where you can be safe, where you can have other people do some of the mundane things of life so that you can focus in on the fun stuff, volunteering, spending time with friends, doing hobbies and activities and traveling and trips and that sort of thing.
What specific services do you provide, and are they really free?
Yes, they're really, really free. The reason my services are free, our services, this is a family business. My husband and a couple other people are working with us. But basically, what we do is we work with families. We will help them, we'll educate them, we'll advise them, we teach them all about senior housing. And it's free to them. Because if somebody moves into senior housing, the communities or the homes are likely to pay us a referral fee.
Okay, so when a group or a person or somebody comes to you, how do you start this process?
We ask a lot of questions, take a lot of notes. We ask about why they're calling. You know, is there a single motivating factor? Was there an illness? Is there a diagnosis of some sort? But we ask all the basic questions about where do you want to live? Do you want to be close to friends, family, doctors? What is your budget? What can you afford? What do you have any issues now? What kind of services do you like? But we also get into the soft issues, the more subjective things, like what kind of environment would you like to live in? Would you like to be in something elegant, or would you like to be in something comfortable? Do you want to have lots of activities and trips, or do you just want to be left alone and have peace and quiet?
Who normally, or who should consider looking at senior housing and the options?
Well, we always recommend that everybody consider senior housing. It's like part of life planning. We always, whenever we're talking to seniors, their families, we always recommend planning. Talk to your elder law attorney. Talk to a financial planner. Make sure that you have your wills, your estate planning, your advanced health care directives all in order. But as part of all of your life planning, consider where you want to age. Do you want to age in the home in which you've been in? Or has that become a burden? Has that become too lonely? Has it become too stifling? Is it too isolated? Is it not near friends, family, doctors, what resources that you want to be near? So we ask that everybody at least consider and plan where they want to be as they age.
So at what point in your life, I started looking at it only recently, and I'm certainly well along in my years. When do you see people starting, or when do you recommend they start? I assume they all start too late.
Not everybody starts too late. Some people do really do the planning that I'm suggesting, and do it as part of their estate planning and their wills and trusts and all that sort of thing. But you're right, most people do wait until there's a diagnosis of an illness, or there was an accident, a fall, a stroke, a heart attack, something along those lines, which provides a wake-up call so that either the senior or their family or a professional that's involved with the senior says, let's talk about this, let's do some planning, let's think about it. Sometimes that means, it's a difficult discussion. On our website, the seniorseasons.com website, there's a workbook that will help families facilitate that discussion. It's a list of checklists, basically. What makes you happy? What do you like about where you are? What would you like to change? What would you like if you moved? Those sorts of things, along with some financial planners and things.
Okay. The other thing is, do children come to you to ask how they should talk to their parents about this and how they approach it? The parents don't want to do anything. They just want to stay where they are, right?
Well, not always, but very frequently, yeah, that's the case. We get involved with families in a multitude of ways. If the children approach us and ask us to get involved, we may wind up speaking to the children first. We may wind up meeting with the entire family all around the kitchen table, and having a discussion about the pluses and minuses of what senior housing can offer and why it would be beneficial. And so we will counsel the families, counsel the children about how to have the conversation.
Are most older parents resistant to this, or they just want to stay where they are, or does some of them come around?
Yeah. Every situation is different, and every situation needs to be looked at from all angles. Yes, a lot of people are resistant because it's a big change. And if they especially are put off by the idea of moving things and being in a different environment, sometimes the family can mitigate the fear by simply having somebody else do the moving and the packing. But also families use logic. Mom, if you stay here, this is what's going to happen. If you move here, this is what could be. I'd like to have you closer to me. I'd like to have you closer to your doctor. So logic works. Sometimes emotion works. Sometimes I had one daughter who went to Florida trying to convince her mom to move here to Silicon Valley, and her mom was just not going to have it. And her mom was not safe where she was. And her daughter was here and had grandchildren here. And the daughter finally just broke down in tears. And that's when Mom relented and said, oh, all right, I guess I'll move. So every family is very different.
Okay, when I heard your presentation at the Avenidas Annual Housing Conference, that's for senior housing, which we'll put a reference to at the end of the program, you went through the process. It's illustrated on this graphic behind me, of all the different types of choices and how they're related and interrelated. So let's start with that. The first thing that you had was 55 plus living. Let's explain what that phase is.
55 plus is simply, it could be an apartment, it could be a condo, it could be real estate purchase, could be rental, or it could be a manufactured housing unit in a manufactured housing park. The only way you find these, I don't know how to find them. They're not licensed. So every once in a while I stumble upon them and I put them in my database, but the only requirement is that whoever lives there must be 55 and older, or if it's a couple, At least one of the members of the couple has to be at least 55 and older. But they're open market, and there are no services, basically. They're unlicensed and there are no services.
So it'd be just somebody renting a room, would it be?
An
Something
apartment,
like that?
usually an apartment,
Usually
or a
an
condo.
apartment.
It could be a real estate purchase, or it could be a mobile home park, that kind of thing. But they're required to be 55 and older. But there are no services, so it's not the kind of senior housing that I like to work with, which is where there are services involved.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
The next thing is independent living.
Okay, that's one of my favorites. Independent living, and there are several here in the area, they're apartment communities. These are unlicensed. They do not provide any personal care. They have no staff that provides any personal assistance. But they do provide meals, weekly housekeeping, weekly linen service, some transportation, some activities. So it's a social environment. People are independent. They come, they go, they still work, they still volunteer, whatever. You have to be 55. Some of them are 55 and older, some of them are 60 and older. But they do provide some services and some activities so that you can enjoy your life more. You don't have to worry so much about maintenance things. You don't have to worry about grocery shopping. You don't have to worry about cooking and cleaning up. It's very nice.
Okay, the next thing is the CCRC.
Oh, you're going to jump to CCRC. Okay. All right, CCRCs. That stands for Continuing Care Retirement Communities. These are what's also known as the buy-in types of communities. These are you have a contract. They promise on the same campus or in the same building to provide not only independent housing, but assisted living, sometimes a healthcare center, sometimes skilled nursing, and sometimes dementia care. It usually costs anywhere from, an entry fee could be anything from $100,000 to well over $1 million. And then you still have your monthly fees that you have to pay, which can range anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 per month, depending on how big the apartment is that you choose. But the interesting thing about these can be both profit or nonprofit sponsored. They provide a lot of activities, a lot of trips. It's a lifestyle decision, basically. You're moving into, it's like buying into a healthcare product, and it's also like buying into a country club. You're living at the country club, basically.
I recently did look at one and found it rather expensive.
Yes, they can be very expensive.
Do you have any experience with any of the clients who are happy there? Or?
I do. I have lots of clients who have moved into communities like that. One in particular, a lady by the name of Lily, who is also my yoga teacher, and she allows me to use her real name. But she looked at almost all of the senior, the CCRC communities, everywhere from Los Gatos up into San Francisco. She was very concerned. She'd been living in a big house in Menlo Park, and she was very concerned about living alone. She knew she was no longer as active and engaged in the evenings as she liked to be, even though she still teaches yoga. But her children still, one lives in Alaska and one lives in Tennessee, and she started to worry about what was going to be, about socializing and about care. So we looked at all of the communities in the area, and she decided on one in Palo Alto. And she has been there now 3 years and is extremely happy with her decision. Her children are happy with her decision. And she will talk to anybody. So if anybody wants to talk to Lily, just give me a call and I'll put you together with her.
Okay, that would be fun. The next is independent assisted memory.
Okay, that is covering everything in between. So independent assisted in memory, as the chart shows here, can be a combination of, it could be just independent and assisted, it can be memory and assisted, it can be all three. Different communities offer different levels of care. And that's one of the things that we provide with to the seniors when we talk to them, is the kinds of, once we've talked to them and asked them about what their preferences are, we try to match them up with what they need. So in the geographic area in which they're interested, in the price range in which they're interested, we try and match them up with the care levels that they actually need. So independent living is exactly what we've talked about already. You move in, you don't need any personal assistance, even though it's provided by staff usually. But they provide the meals, they provide weekly housekeeping, weekly linen service. There are activities. There's an emergency response system. There's transportation buses or vans that will take people to doctor's appointments or to activities or to shopping, that sort of thing. So you can be independent. But if you need assistance, there is assistance provided by the staff. That assistance usually will come to you in your apartment. In a couple of cases locally, you would have to change from one apartment to another apartment within the complex. But that's a question that you need to ask before you move in. If I need assistance, would I have to move? So that's one of the things we try to clarify for families. And then the memory is sometimes in this larger community, there may be a memory support area too. So for those residents who are no longer safe to live in the general population, maybe because they would wander and not find their way back, or because they just need a lot more physical assistance, then there is a memory support area where the staff is specially trained and specially prepared to handle the issues of forgetfulness.
In one of these situations that we were looking at, I found it interesting as you're in your apartment and you're paying your monthly fee, and then if one of the couple has to go into assisted care, they move into another apartment, and now you're paying for two apartments.
That's a question. That's why I like to work with seniors, because we can help them anticipate that question, because that's not necessary. In most instances, it's possible to keep couples together. And it's only a few communities where they would require you to separate and be in two separate apartments.
That's a very serious consideration, because it doubles your monthly from $5,000 to $10,000.
Yes, very.
Okay, so how about residential care?
Okay, residential care is also called board and care. And here in California, and every state is slightly different, but here in California, especially here in the Bay Area, residential care or board and care is they're single-family homes. You wouldn't recognize them as you drive up and down the streets usually, but they're in almost every community. And they're single-family homes that have been converted to care for seniors. So there may be a ramp out in front, but that would probably be the only way you could tell a board and care home from anything else. So they're licensed by the state of California, same license as everything else we're talking about except the independent communities, which are unlicensed. But they provide, usually they're licensed for 6 residents, and there are caregivers on duty all day, 1 to 3 caregivers. The residents can either have private rooms or have shared bedrooms, sometimes shared baths, sometimes private baths. It all depends on the home. But the residents are provided all the care that they need. So all their meals, all their housekeeping, all their linen, all transportation, all within this single family environment.
Okay, next question is, how do you pay for all this if you haven't just sold your Facebook stock or something? You have all this money built up, and some of these fees are rather large. Is there any way to how do you generally pay for them, and is there assistance available in paying for this?
Yeah, I get asked this question, a lot, and I have to deliver a lot of bad news. Almost all of this is private pay. You would either, have saved a lot over your lifetime, You could have long-term care insurance, which would cover care needs if you need care. But for the most part, you are on your own to pay for senior housing. There is, in California, Medicare and Medi-Cal. Most people think that that's going to pay for senior housing, but it doesn't. Medi-Cal will kick in and pay for skilled nursing if somebody is very sick, very frail, very demented, and needs to be in an environment where there's a nurse on duty 24/7. But it does not pay for any of the kinds of senior housing that we deal in. So the only thing is basically private care, private pay. If somebody wants to stay in their own home, there are reverse mortgages, of course. If somebody was a veteran or is the surviving spouse of a veteran, we can talk about a benefit that is delivered by the VA for veterans and their surviving spouses that pays for part of senior housing. It would be a benefit that they pay directly to the senior that can be applied to senior housing, but that's the only secret pot that I know of where you can get extra help for senior housing.
And even long-term care, if I remember correctly, is timed out. You get it for so many months, depending on how much you've paid in, and then it stops.
It depends on the policy. The bad old policies, yeah, they required you to be in skilled nursing. They required you, to have a certain payout per month with a cap. There are policies now where you can be in your own home and receive care, where you can be in a senior community and receive care. It doesn't have to be licensed skilled nursing, and some of them do not have caps, but those are more expensive. Of course.
It all involves money.
It does. Yeah.
Who are some of the specialists that you would call in for these, what type of legal help, financial help, and that type of thing?
Yeah, when we first start talking to families, we always ask, the basic questions of, what they need, why they're calling, what do they want, where, what kind of environment. But we also ask, do you have your wills in place? Do you have your trusts in place? Do you need downsizing advice? Do you need financial advice? Do you need financing? Do you need to juggle things around? Do you need movers? We keep track in our database of all the resources that a senior or a senior's family may need in order to make this kind of transition. So we've got the movers, we've got the downsizers, we've got people daily money managers. There are all sorts of resources that we keep track of.
Tell us about the Avenidas Home Housing Conference.
That's wonderful. Avenidas is one of the best senior centers around for doing conferences like this. The upcoming conference is on caregiving, and the one they do in the spring is the housing conference. And what they do is assemble a lot of speakers and a lot of resources so that anybody who is interested in knowing more about senior housing can go. It's a Saturday morning, usually in March, and it's like $35 for the morning, and that includes lunch and coffee. And they can hear the speakers and wander around and ask lots of questions and get all their questions answered all in one morning.
What is the availability of low-income senior housing? We see it politically all over the place, but I don't see very many big places building it.
Yeah, no, you would be surprised at how much there actually is, but it's not enough for the demand. On my website, there is a link to the HUD website where you can download the list of senior housing, and I have an article on the website about how to apply for affordable housing. But it is here. You just have to be organized. You have to be persistent. You have to be thorough, and you can do it. You can definitely do it. It's and you can find senior housing. It may take you 3 months. It may take you 3 years, but it is possible. And I'd be happy to coach anyone through it.
Give us your comments about this publication behind you there, which is Where to Live, which is the Avenidas directory of senior housing.
Right. So if you want to do it yourself, this is probably the best resource to do it. I actually used this when I started Senior Seasons. I went to Avenidas myself when my mother said, okay, I'd consider moving up there. So I went to Avenidas and I talked to the information and referral department, and I purchased the book and used that to find housing for my mother. It has everything in the area. It has low-income housing as well as all of the kinds of housing that we're talking about in the Mid-Peninsula area. The problems with it is that they only update it about every 2 years. So if you want more recent pricing, call me. But yeah, and then when I used that, I realized, how difficult it is, because it has the who, what, where, when, but it doesn't give you the personality. It's really difficult to know what's right for you. And so I realized what trouble seniors and their families go through in making this decision. So that's when I decided to establish Senior Seasons back in 2004, right after we moved my mom up here, and she loved it. She loved her senior community, and she thrived, and she developed new friends, and she made new hobbies, and she got learned how to get around on the public transportation, and she loved it. So I realized that this is a wonderful resource, but I could provide so much more personal help to families. So that's when we started Senior Seasons.
Oh, well, thank you. I will refer to the graphic that's going to come up on the screen and right now as a closing quote. Thank you, Kaye. Thank you for joining us, and I hope our viewers will find it very useful in the plans that they have to make ahead. Thank you. Thank you for watching The Better Part. We hope that we are able to provide you with resources to find senior housing. But as I said in the beginning, plan, plan, plan. See you next week.